Host, Joanne Williams, and I'm here with Charlie Monson, the connector. I would like
Thank
to
you,
welcome
Joanne.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joanne, and welcome to the show. I'm Charlie Monson. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to all listeners. I have my guest on the show today, Joanne Williams, and we will be discussing your accounting systems. But Joanne, tell us a little bit about yourself, about Joanne Williams, and what has actually inspired Joanne to be an accountant. Now with you, Joanne.
Thank you, Charlie. Well, to start out, I never thought I'd be an accountant. At school, I wanted to be either a physiotherapist or an interior decorator. So I chose the most bizarre combination of subjects, and I couldn't get into university typically because of my subject choice. So what ended up happening is I went to my gran, and she was not going to have another grandchild have a gap year. So she was pretty adamant that I was going to study. And because my aunt and a couple of people in my family are actually accountants, she decided a great starter for me would be a BCom. And from that, what bloomed is I actually loved accounting. I never did it in school, and it came quite naturally to me. So from there, I just gradually developed a passion for accounting and went on to auditing and developed from there. And yeah, now I have my own accounting practice, which is fabulous.
Very interesting, Joanne. Knowing you for a while now, your mum being an accountant or bookkeeper as well, and you are running a business with her, has that helped you in any way?
Yes, I would say it has. It's a great question. I know when I was still in school, my mum had gone back into corporate, and in the corporate life, she didn't enjoy doing the book so much. Now that we're running our own practice, she's found that passion again, which is fantastic to see. So it's a great combination where I've got my mum who's got a lot of experience as a bookkeeper and being a financial manager in some corporates, and myself who's now qualified as a chartered accountant. Over to you, Charlie.
Wow, that must be very great environment to be working in, having someone so close to you and who shares the same passion. And Joanne, while you were studying, did you at any time have the feeling that I might not be studying the right thing, or I'm actually enjoying this?
That's a very good question. I did definitely at one point consider I wasn't in the right direction because I wanted to be more of an entrepreneur and have my own business. And I didn't know at the time, obviously, that I would start my own accounting practice. So at one point in time, I spoke to some close mentors of mine who sat me down and said, you know what, rather finish the path that you're on, finish your degree. And I'm very thankful that they were so honest and blunt with me and encouraged me to pursue my BCom.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Marina, would you have a question or two for Joanne from your side?
Wow, I'm so grateful to be here with you too. And you know, it's always so much to learn from it. And I know that most of our listeners are entrepreneurs, and they run their own business. They work long, odd hours. They never manage to get a holiday, and it's not very much they can show for their commitment for what they are bringing into the society, because they provide great services, they're passionate, they go the extra mile, they go the extra 10 miles, and yet seems that something is happening, that the money don't really love them the way they deserve. So their passion, their commitment, their time and energy, their dedication seems like it's never enough to bring in a great cash flow. And I was wondering, Actually, we have a couple of questions, and this is one of the questions from one of our listeners in Australia, where I think it's midnight or just early, very early in the morning. She is asking, how do you control money and stop money controlling you?
Wow, that is an interesting question, Marina, and I'm sure Joanne will be able to answer us on that one. Yes, we do always find ourselves as entrepreneurs being pretty caught up in running our businesses, and we're not looking at how our funds are going per se. Okay, we got Joanne back. Joanne, did you get the question? Joanne, are you back on? Oh, okay. Yes, cash flow does become a problem, and managing it being an entrepreneur, because our main focus is basically on getting more business and getting more business. And we're not really looking at how do we need to manage and budget our cash flow, how it goes in and how it goes out, and how does it come back in. Hi, Joanne, are you back?
Yes, sorry about that.
No problem. Did you get the question from Australia?
Oh, I did, fortunately. Can you please repeat it?
Yeah, so how do you stop chasing money and stop the money controlling you and you start controlling the money?
That is a phenomenal question. It very comes down to your mindset. I think the difference between profitability and cash flow, but also about service delivery, because we often hear it that when you focus on delivering quality service to your customers, you know, the money will come in. But it's also finding the correct customers. It's no good just business with the right people. The people that won't make us feel abused in any way or taken advantage of. So when you've got to be to do business with. Starting out, you're so driven to get money in, you might take on the wrong businesses. But what they can ultimately lead to is your business going under because you've taken on the wrong clients and missed the clients that are the right ones for you to actually work with. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Very, very interesting. At the same time, as I mentioned while you were offline, we find ourselves as entrepreneurs focusing on getting business. And as you so correctly pointed out, it is the type of business or type of client we're looking for. But having lost that focus, we're not really focusing on how to manage our cash flow at the same time. And that is where you get, it's either the money is controlling you or you controlling the money. And what do you think about that, Joanne?
I agree with you there. Very often when it comes down to the money controlling you, what I find with a lot of entrepreneurs is they get so singularly focused on purely invoicing. So their whole drive is let me invoice the next customer, let me invoice the next customer, and they're driving to get money in. They're forgetting about their expenses. They're forgetting about the cost of running their business. They're so focused on the next job, the next bit of money. And the moment you start looking at the business as a whole, you can start seeing a clearer picture of where you are heading to. Because I think if you get too distracted by money, you start chasing after the wrong things. I've had clients that have gone and they started one business, and next minute their business has 5 different divisions focusing on several areas that have nothing to do with each other, and it just gets very blurry and they don't know where they're going. So have clarity, have focus, and don't just focus on getting the income in. Focus on the whole business and strategize around the cash flow for the business. so that you can really advance your business forward.
Wow, that is some useful information there in having to know how you should focus and on what type of business do you want to have. I've also, through my entrepreneurial years, encountered the very same mistakes where you sort of, a client would want an additional service, and you start delving in that and losing focus on your core business, because that one at sometimes is, its return on investment is actually a little bit more, but however it's not coming as regular as it should. What do you advise SMEs and predominantly startups to do if that does happen? Would outsourcing be a better route to go with it instead of delving on it, or maybe referring them that your clients to a business or collaborating with someone?
That's a very good question. It would have to come down to the scenario specifically, because what may appear to be a good return on investment, as you were saying, Charlie, at the end of the day, it might take you so much time because it's not your speciality. The amount of learning that has to happen in order to provide that service or that product is so significant. We've really got to evaluate our time more closely as a commodity. And by doing so, you may evaluate a potential project as not as great a return on investment, because the amount of time you may physically have to invest into something may be significantly more than if you just outsourced it and, you know, helped connect and collaborate with people who understand that specific area. Over to you, Charlie.
Thank you, Joanne. Marina, your feel on the question that was answered on the control of money and how businesses are not focusing on their core business and sort of just dragging out or getting involved in a number of things that takes them off the focus of their core business.
Anne, you just explained this in such a clear way and such a structure, and making total sense for me personally to hire somebody when one of my clients, for example, would want to have the broadcasting series on W.O.R.K.S on a physical CD. Even everything is digital now. Sometimes they really want to have that as a gift and use it instead of a business card. So instead of me struggling to learn how to burn CDs, or which is very easy anyway, or spend the time on that, I just look up at 6-7 suppliers in different countries, and I choose the best free quotes, and I go back to the client and I say, this is not something I do personally, so it's going to be a charge, and this is how much they charge. And I resolve with that a big challenge. I don't want to say no to a client with whom I have a great relationship. I don't want to disappoint them or let them down, but I can't overload my own time because my most important asset is my time. And now the next question comes for you, Joanne. So when people want to delegate, sometimes it's very hard to keep in balance the time for outsourcing and put a value on that. How would you recommend to your clients to charge for extra services for outsourcing?
Thanks for that question, Amina. It's quite an interesting phenomenon. I think one thing that has to always be established is you've got to, I believe more and more and more, we've got to evaluate values of individuals that we're going to outsource to. And Also clarify expectations, because I think the biggest downfall when we outsource is that expectations are not clarified up front. And when expectations are not clarified, it allows for this extra room where the one person believes that they've fulfilled on what you've requested of them, but you don't feel like you've gotten value for what you wanted, or in turn you feel like, oh, I should have just done it myself anyway. Why did I waste my time and my money and my resources in outsourcing? So it's about making sure that the person that you're outsourcing to does understand your needs and expectations, and that they have the skills to meet those expectations and the resources. I think without that, you're just going to end up being very frustrated, and sometimes we do get our fingers burnt when we outsource, I'm not going to lie. It's about finding the correct key individuals that you can work with and collaborate with.
And then the next question for you, John, is what is your view on having an accountancy system?
My personal view is I think it's vitally, vitally important for every single business. And the reason why I say this is because I've worked with several companies, and a lot of them have sometimes come to me having worked on spreadsheets alone. What I found is with a lot of these clients that I've taken on that have only worked on spreadsheets, the one client I did an exercise where we evaluated the amount of people that owed them money versus the amount of money that they physically recorded in their income. And there was over R1 million worth of revenue lying on the table that now could never be recovered. Because without an accounting system supporting them, they could never truly identify who owed them money and how much money was owed. So they lost track of who they owed money to. They lost track of who owed them money. And at the end of the day, all they kept looking at is the money in the bank and thinking they were doing really, really well. So for me, accounting systems become absolutely fundamental. So yeah, that is just one of the stories I have.
And I do have a question from myself to you, John. So I just wonder, from your point of view, from a technical point of view, because you are an accountant and you are a very open-minded business person, a great entrepreneur, I wonder, what do you think is the key message for our listeners to create a great relationship with their money? You know, to me, money are like anything else you are dealing in life with. Sometimes they are a casualty, sometimes they are a celebrity, sometimes they are a big friend, sometimes they are a big enemy. And I learned that it's always your expectations about something or somebody are to be mirrored within your own image. So, for example, if I treat somebody well, that person is going to treat me well the same way. If I treat somebody bad, they will react to what I do to them, and I will have a bad outcome. So I wonder, what is your view on creating a relationship with your money?
Thank you for that question. I actually really enjoyed that one. This is a story about when I was still studying. I studied part-time, so I was working full-time. And during that time, I was actually doing my articles, which is an internship. So I was getting paid quite a small amount of money. So I did a little exercise where I got challenged, and someone challenged me and said, okay, I want you to change your thinking, because obviously you're receiving very little money. But instead of coming across the normal situation, I'm sure you heard the joke, why is there so much month left at the end of the money? They challenged me to change my thinking and rather say I have more than enough money to get through. And so just continue reaffirming that I had more than enough. I didn't have more or less money than I had the month before. I had the equal amount of money. But what I found is when I just looked at my life that way and looked at money that way and just reaffirmed that I have more than enough, I would get through the month perfectly fine, and there would be a little bit of rand left in my account at the end of the month. when I would suddenly change my thinking and I would be looking at my bank account and I'd be like, oh, there's not enough money here, there's not enough money here, I put myself under so much strain. I was under tremendous stress, and at the end of the day, I don't think it helped my health, and it certainly didn't help my mindset at all. So in terms of mindset, I think just we have to reframe our thinking. And as tough as months might get, it's about budgeting forward, especially when it comes to taxes. As entrepreneurs, we hate tax, but it is a thing we all have to do. So it's about budgeting for those expenses that you're going to have to pay, but also affirming to yourself that there is enough money for me to, get through this month.
Wow, that is one very, very interesting one there, Joanne. Having the correct mindset is very important in every aspect of our lives. You actually caught me a bit on that one with budgeting. How does budgeting your expenses, and also some people look at a budget as a target, but then in business, people don't look at a business having to budget. We're looking at our personal lives and saying, I need to have a budget for myself so that I should see myself through the month. What would you say a business having to budget its expenses? How is it important in a business as it is important in our personal lives?
Thank you, Charlie. With regards to budgeting, I think it's fundamental to understand there's certain priorities with any business, and there's obviously priorities in our personal life. So in a business, you have set amounts that have to be paid by a certain date. Here in South Africa, we have to pay employee tax by the 7th of the month, and you have to pay VAT by the 30th or the 31st, the last working Friday of that month. So when it comes to budgeting in business, especially I look more as a budgeting cash flow combination. I don't look at a budget as a target. I look at a budget in terms of these are my set expenses, and then I've got to prioritize those expenses, especially when the cash flow is a little tight. I need to prioritize which expenses need to be paid first. And sometimes that's the reality. So when it comes to our receiver of revenue, I would always put that as a #1 priority. I would never want to pay them late because the penalties are just out of this world. And you're just going to end up paying more expenses because you paid the receiver late. Usually with some suppliers, you can, if cash flow is tight, you can usually just explain to them the situation and say, I will have money coming in by such and such a date and plan accordingly. So it's about prioritizing your expenses. So I do combine, I combine a budget with cash flow. And for that scenario, I do use a spreadsheet. But that's, I have a set formula as to how I'll calculate things. So it allows me to see where money is coming in and what expenses I have to pay, and then from that I can budget accordingly.
Wow, very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. Now, having done that, some businesses have a separate account or a number of separate little accounts that they save money into that account to manage certain expenses. What is your take on that one? Like, we would have little call accounts to pay our debit orders in our personal lives. Would that be an advisable thing for a business to do as well?
I would definitely advise that businesses, especially when it comes to taxes, look at a separate account. What I have found is by putting the money aside as I receive the money, because when it comes to sales tax or VAT, it's not my money. And if it's in my current account, I want to spend it. So I'm obviously talking as an entrepreneur here, not as an accountant. But as an entrepreneur, I'd like to go and spend it. I want to go and buy this. I need to go and buy all sorts of things. But the moment I go and I spend the sales tax money or the VAT money, I'm putting myself under additional pressure. Where what I found is, especially in the service industry, we at the moment we receive our income, we take the 14% VAT and we put it immediately into a call account. What that does is, number one, when it comes to having to pay VAT or income tax, the stress is less because the money is already sitting in a call account. It's earning interest, and I know that if I'm paying less than what's in my call account, I'm actually in a good space. I've got the money, I'm okay. So stress-wise, it helps. It also allows you to earn money on money that's not really yours. You're just acting as an agent to collect that money on behalf of a receiver. So with VAT or tax, I would definitely recommend it. As far as debit orders and everything, I reckon the additional charges you're going to incur by having so many different bank accounts, I wouldn't recommend that. It's just about then managing the amount of cash flow you have. Obviously, if you have additional cash flow available, then possibly open a secondary call account where you more save up for long-term investing. Over to you.
Very interesting, Joanne. Marina, your take on that one? I can actually hear you wanting to ask a question on that call account and the budgeting one.
Yes, I was wondering because I'm looking at the questions here, and there are quite a bit of questions. Maybe you come back. But one of the questions is, what is your advice on budgeting for marketing, for business expenditure, and for other categories? If you have a structure, I think the question refers: is there a magic formula that you use to decide how you spend the money and how you invest your money into the next month?
That is a great question. I do not have a specific formula. Obviously, the main thing that I always want to make sure of is that the receiver of revenue is always covered. That for me, you always want to keep them on your good side. You never want to be on their bad side. But in terms of marketing and all those other expenses, especially more capital expenses you need to be far more strategic about. You obviously need to make sure that you have the correct infrastructure when you're starting out. And that can sometimes be quite costly. But additional expenses, the worst thing I think a business can do is if they see they have money in the bank, they go and buy themselves a fancy Porsche when they still owe quite a lot of people money. So it's about the type of expenses. It needs to be relevant to the business, and it needs to have a purpose. So for me, it's about separation. It's about separating our own wants and desires as entrepreneurs, business owners, wanting to obviously show that we're doing well and everything like that, or even getting a reward for all our hard work. And for me, it comes down to more separating yourself from your business and always keeping the interests of the business at heart. So when it comes to budgeting for marketing, you can always work that into your budget, but always make sure that your priorities are covered first. Make sure that your suppliers have been paid. Make sure that you've got money for the receiver. And then at least, and whatever is left, then by all means, go out and market. I believe strongly in marketing. But it needs to be within reason, and it needs to give you a good return.
Wow. That is very interesting, and we find when we come now to capital expenses as well. How do you know that you have the right accountant or bookkeeper working with you? And the second part of that question is, could you explain the difference to us from a bookkeeper and an accountant? what are their two duties and functions within a business? We do find that sometimes businesses have bookkeepers with them in-house, and what relationship do accountants have with bookkeepers per se?
Thanks for all those questions, Charlie. Let's see if I can try and address them all. Okay, firstly, you're asking about bookkeepers and accountants. The primary thing between a bookkeeper and accountant is probably the degree behind them. A bookkeeper can go and get a diploma. It can sometimes mean that somebody did a course in bookkeeping, how to do a debit and a credit. Unfortunately, some of them do not fully grasp the concept, but there are some phenomenal bookkeepers out there, and they're very, very good at getting the numbers into a great accounting system. As far as accountants, there are several types of accountants. You've got professional accountants, business accountants, chartered accountants. So there's a lot of accountants out there. It's about understanding each type. I myself, I'm a chartered accountant, which means I'm accredited with SICA. So in order to become a chartered accountant, I had to do a full BCom. I had to get an honors in accounting. I had to pass all my subjects in a single year to then go on and write 2 board exams and get a minimum of 3 years worth of actual experience in the field. So once I've proven that I firstly have theoretical knowledge and application, only then could I qualify as a chartered accountant. So that's the first one. As far as deciding or trying to identify who's a good bookkeeper or accountant for you, I think for me personally, it's about having a relationship with your accountant to not to know what's going on in your business. We're talking a lot about numbers, a lot about cash flow, about knowing who owes you money and knowing how much money you owe. And the only way you can really know that is if you have somebody reliable doing your books that's keeping you informed. And if they're not, then perhaps you need to inquire as to why they're not. And they need to be able to hopefully explain the numbers to you in a way that makes sense. So identifying with your business, explaining to you why certain things are the way they are for your business and your industry. And then, yeah.
You having mentioned the business in the industry, that would be part of my next question, is it important for an accountant to understand your industry as an entrepreneur so as to be able to understand as well how you should be managing your cash flow? Because you find sometimes accountants do not understand an industry and they might advise incorrectly. Does that sometimes happen?
It certainly can happen. I wouldn't say it can't, and I do believe that if an accountant does understand your business better, it can result in the numbers showing a different picture. As an example, if you take a PR company, they run a lot of events, so their entertainment expenses would be a lot higher than somebody who is perhaps a plumber.
Something went wrong.
Sorry, my computer's talking to me at the same time.
It wants to join the conversation. This is a very interesting conversation. When a computer wants to join in, what do you think about that, Marina?
I think always 4 is better than 3.
Until it tells you something went wrong, anyway.
Yeah. So I wonder, Charlie, I know
Yes.
we would love to ask another 300 questions. It's building up in front of me, actually, as we go along. So we don't have very much time left, and we have to be ready to say goodbye to our listeners, but not before you are giving our listeners and you share with us the key message for today.
Joanne, I'll let you handle that one, and then I'll take over from it. I would actually like Joanne to mention something about accounting systems. Which accounting system would be the best for a person to use?
Charlie, for me personally, I've selected to partner with a company called Xero, Xero. And the reason why is I was firstly looking for a cloud-based accounting system, which would be easy for my customers to use, that they can now invoice directly on the system. It's cloud-based, which means they can access it from anywhere, from their cell phones, from their tablets, from their computers, as long as they have internet access. So they can do what they do best. They can focus on their business, they can get the invoicing done to their customers, and we can do the rest. What I found is with Xero, they're a very innovative accounting system, which is also beautiful and very easy to use. But it also allows me the control. So for me, I'm very happy with that decision. We collaborate really, really well, and they give me excellent support. In terms of a final message to all the listeners out there, I think it's about, I want to encourage you as entrepreneurs to get in touch with your numbers. I know that accounting and bookkeeping and all of that stuff is very often an afterthought and something that you don't really want to look at, because potentially it's showing you a result that you don't really want to perceive. But the more you understand what's happening in your business, especially from a numbers basis, you can really strategize and grow your business forward. So I thoroughly encourage you to get in touch with what's happening in your business from a numbers perspective. And yeah.
Wow, thank you very much, Joanne. My last message would be, as Joanne has pointed out, is knowing your numbers, knowing how to manage your money, because your money, the money and how liquid your business is as far as cash is concerned, is actually the road to your growth. Manage your money correctly, have your cash flow stronger, and tighten up on your expenses, know what is happening, and have a great one. Over to you, Marina.
Wow, it's always a privilege to learn and to share. And I love, Joan, the fact that you got a passion for numbers. And for our listeners who understand that numbers could make or break, I would suggest get in touch with Joan now and stay connected. It's a lot to learn. And have always pen and paper ready, because she comes with these brilliant, amazing ideas which you think, oh, I never thought of that. So get in touch with Joan. What is the best way of connecting with you, Joan?
They can definitely connect with me. They can email me at info@leadaccounting.co.za or info@leadingedgeaccounting.co.za. Or otherwise, connect with me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm available, happy to help and advise and give you guys input, and really want to see as many businesses thrive. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for a great discussion. To all, as Charlie Monson, your networking host. Hope you enjoyed the show, and looking forward to seeing you next week, where I will be bringing you another very, very interesting person to share a whole lot of business ideas and so forth with us. Have a great week, and looking forward to speaking to you again next week. Good night, and have a great day, and have a good breakfast to wherever you are in the world.
Goodbye.